one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I said, I hope the flag's around the corner.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt? Mr. Beistel? Mr. Calero?
Here.
Mrs. Love?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Here.
Mrs. Shipley? Here. Mr. Benz?
Here. For citizens' comments, I want to ask a question. Is there any citizens' comments?
Mr. President, we have no comment cards.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I had a couple board members say they will not be here next meeting or possibly the second meeting. So let's just make sure we have a quorum for both those meetings so we don't have a problem. Do we have people going to be our first meeting of August? Should be next Thursday?
First Thursday?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Next Thursday?
I'll be here.
Okay, so we have a quorum for that, and the next Thursday after that?
14th.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure we didn't have to re-advertise and change the date. Scotty Way paving, report from Mr. Miswell.
At this time, Mr. Miswald and Mr. Marnell, Mr. Patonic, the bids have been opened and a lot of options laid out, and you're going to begin, Mr. Miswald, by informing the board of a particular option and explaining that and providing a recommendation from the district and informing and taking questions and going from there.
Yes, I can explain the one option here. Does everyone have this sheet? Right, yes. It would be page 3, alternate third. This repair of the roadway, as it's listed in the as alternate third, would provide a more substantial repair to the broken area of the pavement. It would probably more meet the PennDOT standards with the sub-base. Even though we have the other alternates in here, they're not quite as substantial.
Mr. Miswal is referring to what's listed in column 5 as option C.
Does anyone have any questions about that option?
Could you expand on a little bit, Lee, just exactly what that option entails?
Okay,
In an earlier meeting, Lee, you said that the PennDOT engineer referred to it as a value option, and I didn't.
Yes,
I'd like to
it would be
understand
a value option for that particular area in the roadway. Because of that, we do have heavy traffic on there with the trucks delivering supplies, the constant trucking of the trash and the buses. This adds a heavier stone base, a thicker stone base that's actually reinforced with what they call PA number 2A stone. And this would provide a substantial base, even a little heavier than what we have in place now. I examined the part that came up, and I don't believe it was as thick as this when it was originally done. And if we get in there and take that out, put this new base in there, and then continue all the way down with the rest of the driveway, we should have a very good driveway.
That option is basically milling the whole driveway, though, right?
Yes, yes. It'll take 400 yards of the repair section plus mill the entire driveway, and then top coat the driveway.
Compare that one to, I'm just going over there now, let's take the low end on that same, the 3B, the 30,600. What is, just compare the two there, just to get a sense of what that would be.
3B is the damage section, repair, but not with the heavier stone base. Is that correct?
The first 4 columns on Mr. Marnell's sheet are the way it was bid the last time, following instructions to bid it the same way. 5 and 6 deal with better stone base and more bituminous paving, as per Mr. Miswah's research, for the entire length. What about 7 and 8? 7 and 8 are to only do the white painted areas,
The damage section.
the damaged areas, and not do the entire length.
But number 7, is that with the heavier stone included then?
Yes.
So in other words, you'd be doing the patching that you're doing in number 3 with the same heavier stone that you'd be doing if you did the whole driveway.
A deeper
Deeper.
dig
Right.
with a heavy stone course, and then the lighter stone course, and then thicker
And-
base, asphalt, and then the wearing course on top.
For the repair section,
The
For the repair
section,
section.
right.
just the repair section.
Stone
And-
base is not being replaced for the entire length
Right.
under either the original proposal that was voted down last time or any of these, because it would mean milling
Right.
the entire length of the driveway, which would be a totally different project. But I just wanted to point out that before you get too far into these numbers, there's more that we have to do tonight, because we had a bid coming late and we have to deal with it.
Do we have any more questions for Mr. Miswald before we move on to that, what David's referring to? Go ahead, Mr. Rose.
Could you just tell me, Lee, the difference here between number 5 and number 6? It was number 6, a better grade of, is it a better job? I mean, is it more?
I believe that's the tar and chip in between the layers that's added on. Is that correct, Jim?
It's the same job, so you're doing the whole driveway plus the more substantial, deeper repair to the damaged section.
Okay.
What 6 does is there's, and I'm not a paving engineer, but there's a tack coat that's laid between the, 2 of the courses, and I forget which 2. It might be between the base course and the wearing course. I think there's a tack coat put down. Strip out the tack coat cost, and in its place, just like what we see out on our country roads that annoys us all, the tar and the
Tar and
chipping.
chipping.
They would do that, put a tar and chip. So, the thought was perhaps tarring and chipping would give a better seal and protection to the job, the surface underneath. And the other theory is that when you apply the wearing course, then it's got more of an adhesion to the tar and chip coat rather than the typical tack coat. So like A and A1 are the same job, except A1 takes out the tack coat and inserts the tar and chip coat. B and B1 is just to repair the bad section. One with tack coat, the higher number with the tar and chip. A and B have the repair of the bad section is a less of a depth and a less substantial. It's just number 2A stone, I think about 8 inches worth. Again, C is doing the whole driveway and a more substantial repair with a heavy aggregate sub-base, as well as the 2A base stone, a thicker base asphalt coat. Column 6 or C1 is doing the same thing, take out the tack coat, insert the tar and chip coat. And 8 is, again, it's the more substantial repair to the bad section. Not doing the whole driveway, just doing the bad section, the more depth to the excavation, again, the heavier stone grade, tack coat versus tar and chip.
I do have a question as well, whomever. What is when we're just doing, if we would just be doing the bad section and not repaving the rest of the driveway, what is the specs for where those two come together? Since that's a hill running down like that, there's going to be water running down the hill. What's assuring us that the water won't run from the old section down?
Well, there will be no stop to the water running downhill.
No. What I'm saying is, we're not the,
Where they join is what you're saying.
where they
Right.
join,
The old section.
where the old
You're not
section
doing
and the
all
new
the-
section join,
Right.
if
It
we're
would-
not doing any repaving.
They do a key, sort of a key cut, they call it, where they key in the new. But the issue with that is if you look at the rest of the driveway, even beyond the repair section that's broken, the rest of the driveway would quickly follow that section. If we have another bad winter this year or next
I
year, it would just continue on down.
Okay.
When we first looked at the project, it was hard to find an area to stop, to determine we're going to go from here to here just for the repair because of the condition of the rest of the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions on the technical end of things? Not in the price? Mr. Rhodes?
My understanding is, or tell me if I'm correct with this, the whole driveway then, if we go for the whole, that's what we vote for, would that whole driveway then from Chestnut up to the top of the hill, would that all be milled off? And
Yes.
then new,
Approximately 800 feet,
okay,
about 760 to 800 feet, depending where we can key it into the top of the pavement.
all right, we're talking about both of those legs.
Yes, both lanes, from Chestnut all the way up.
Okay,
How long, the
And-
part that is damaged at the present time, how long did that last? I mean, what's the life of that section? Before it
The
be-
part that was damaged, I actually looked at in 2012 with some paving contractors, and it really resembled the rest of the pavement, but it just went very fast. It surprised me how quick it went this past winter. But we did look at it in 2012.
when was it done?
No, I don't know when it was done, I couldn't find a date, but when we looked at the project in 2012, just to do some planning, it wasn't anywhere near this condition.
Mr. Clary?
Lee, knowing absolutely nothing, but just by observation, that bad section has drains on either side.
Yes,
Assuming when they dig it out, that those drains were, the pipe that's there, whatever was pulling the water off of there are broken, that would be additional to cost of this if they find there's a problem with that?
we already, I had a camera company, we've had a camera company come in to put a camera through that, and it's in good condition.
It's in good condition, so
Yes.
it has nothing to do with broken drain there at all?
No, we examined it, we lifted both drain covers and went from one end to the other.
Any other board members, question on technical end of things from Mr. Miswell?
Am I right or wrong that there's terracotta tile under that road?
There's terracotta in
Yeah,
that
I
section.
mean terracotta pipe.
Right, yes.
It's jointed together, right?
Yes. But the technician that put the camera in, I questioned him on the terracotta, and he said the joints, and he does this quite often, he said the joints look good. They weren't slipped out or misaligned. He said that it resembled a typical terracotta pipe installation.
Anyone else?
What, I'm just curious, why, you raised that for a reason,
Well, the only thing
say a
is,
little more.
like, you have cement drainage pipe, that when it's put together, it's put in a sealed bale. They go together, same as terracotta tile, am I right or wrong? They go in sections.
Yes.
They butt together, they make a pipe. And the only thing is, concerns me is how long that's been under there, and freezing and thawing of winter, and the joints might come. And now they're back together because it's warm and natural. I'm just speculating where that water could get in there in the wintertime and expand and freeze and separate. Okay, where most of your drainage anymore is plastic pipe, am I right or wrong? A whole section makes one pipe. That's the only thing that I'm a little concerned about. Because it's been in there probably, when was the road put in? You don't know, and I don't know either, when the school was built, probably. That was probably never replaced.
Mid-60s.
That's the only question I got, that's all.
We did observe that the joints were mortared or cemented together.
Okay, that's fine.
I couldn't tell you, we couldn't really tell if they were moved a little, but it was a typical, the condition is typical for its age.
And none of these bids address that,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
They're just gonna go over the top of the pipe that's in there and put a binder and seal coat it, and then put your wear seal on top of it, and that's gonna be it. They're gonna go with heavier material on top of the problem now, and then if we decide to go the whole length, rotomill it all off, subsidize that place right there with heavier material so it doesn't come back up or whatever it's doing, and then go and pave the whole thing if that's what we decide, or go the other route, just fix what's there, pave over top of it, seal the top end of it so the water don't get under it, and be done. It's,
Mr. Polakowski, you work in construction, do you have any sense for doing the whole thing or a section of it?
I feel the same way I felt last month, just to do what was the 400 square feet, and not redo the whole thing. That'd be option D. Or D1.
Well, before we, do you want to, let's move on. We'll get back to this in a minute. We need to move on to page 3, take care of this resolution, and then we can pick which option.
Yes. This, I am going to read, it's labeled Insert 1. It's a resolution for Scotty Way repaving project, waiver or non-waiver of irregularity in late receipt of bidder of Peter J. Caruso and Sons, Inc. Whereas during the morning hours of July 29, 2014, an elderly gentleman, representative Peter J. Caruso and Sons, Inc., stopped at a Southmoreland school building office area, lost and confused, and asked an employee in the office for directions to 200 Scotty Way, about 2 miles distant. And that employee called the board secretary, who told that employee to put the date and time and that employee's initials on the envelope and left it sealed. And that employee said that employee would be going to lunch and bring the envelope by noon within the hearing of the gentleman, but then that employee forgot to do so and later placed it in the inter-school mail such that it arrived at 200 Scotty Way during the morning of July 30, still sealed, which was after the bids had been opened at 1:30 p.m. on July 29, 2014 by Mr. Botonic in the presence of Mr. Marnell and Mr. Mizwa, all without prior knowledge of the above. Whereas said bidder had participated in the first round of bidding on this project, whereas the bid notice required delivery to the board secretary at 200 Scotty Way by 1:30 p.m. on July 29, 2014 to be publicly opened at that time, whereas the public notice permits the board to waive any irregularities that may benefit the school district, whereas said putative bid has not been opened, now be it resolved that on this motion, Number one, the board finds as fact the above circumstances. Two, the board has considered the above irregularity, and the solicitor advises that it does not adversely affect competitive bidding by placing the above bidder in a position of advantage over other bidders. Three, and the solicitor advises that waiving the late arrival will not deprive the district of its assurance that the contract will be entered into, performed, and guaranteed according to its specified requirements. Therefore, the school board does authorize and direct that the sealed bid of Peter J. Caruso and Sons, Inc. be publicly opened now, and a determination made by the solicitor of whether it complies with all other requirements, and the bid results publicly announced for further disposition.
Do we have a motion before questions?
I make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Calero, second. Second by Mr. Miller. Now questions? Do we need a roll call? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel? Yes. Mr. Benz?
Yes?
Mr. Calero?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
The secretary have the package?
Yes.
Yes, down, please. The front of the envelope, there's a copy with your handouts tonight.
If you flip to the next page, you can...
It's addressed, it's from Peter J. Caruso and Sons, Inc. It's directed to Southmoreland School District, Mrs. Margaret Tarson, 200 Scotty Way, Scottsdale, PA 15683. Has initials on it, I believe, of the employee of the other building. Scotty, and it says bid Scotty Way repaving project, date July 29, 2014, time 1:30 p.m. And then it says received 7/29, 10 a.m. And I'm sorry, this is the initials of the other employee. So I'll open it. There is a bid bond with surety supplied with all signatures and the power of attorney authorizing the agent to sign, so the bid bond and bond power of attorney have complied.
So those are all in your columns on your chart.
The deviation form is submitted, and there are no deviations being supplied. It's marked in A. Okay, there is a qualification statement. Have you ever failed to complete any work awarded to you? No. Have you ever defaulted on a contract? No. qualification statement fails to answer several questions. Number 10 lists the more important projects recently committed by your company, stating the approximate cost. No answer. List your major equipment available. No answer. Experience in construction work similar in importance to this project. No answer. They did supply credit available, $1,250,000 PNC Bank. Will you, upon request, fill out a detailed financial statement? Yes. Unfortunately, the statement is signed, but not the part for the unsworn verification to authorities, which is the same omission that was committed by Kay Dolan. So that is not compliant. I'm looking for a non-collusion affidavit.
Shall we move on to the next resolution? Then when he's done, and if he recommends that it's not a compliant,
There is a non-collusion affidavit, so that was supplied.
we'll have to add a verbal statement and then this resolution.
There is a bid proposal form supplied, and now, for what would be, I guess, column A1. Well, not this. Page 205. Okay, I'm sorry, that's column 3. No, column 4. I'm sorry. For the tack code substitute, it says not applicable, not applicable. Don't know what that means. And then they did the same thing for what would be column 8. The price includes the paving of the wearing course and is for excavating 10.5 inches. So it looks like a deviation.
Is there page 3 open? Oh, page 3.
Okay. I don't think this is compliant, but just to put everything on the table. Your column 1, the total price would be $55,000. I'm sorry, $55,722.50. And I'm reserving, by saying these numbers, that I believe that this is not compliant. Column A1 would add $14,985, bringing the grand total to $70,707.50. So that's your column number 2. Okay, then we go to what would be column number 3. This would be just patching the certain area using the old specifications, $26,380. Then B1, they don't add anything more. It's still $26,380. And it says this price includes the paving of the wearing course and is for excavating 12.5 inches.
They had trouble with the math, too.
Paving of the wearing course, but there's no tar and chip. It doesn't say no extra charge, it just says N/A, which to me means not applicable or not available. Next part would be your column 5, 53,782. And 50 cents. And then column 6, 68,767.50. Column 7, 21,300. And then the same problem for the tack coat alternate, NA, and it's still 21,300 in the notation. This price includes the paving of the wearing course and is for excavating 10.5 inches. And it would not be prevailing wage if that's all they do. And they state that.
So do you recommend we should include this in the next resolution?
So, to be clear,
Go back to the bid proposal form. Was it all signed?
the bid
in proper
proposal
places?
form,
Was it signed in the
I'm
proper
sorry.
places?
Everybody puts these back together differently. It was signed by, looks like somebody Caruso III. Present. So it's signed, but some of the contents are ambiguous.
Are you making a recommendation?
So my recommendation is, because they didn't complete the qualifications and the ambiguities in the proposal, that it be disallowed, which is the next resolution that you have. So
Want to read that, Dr. Scott?
Well, David, should you provide a statement that can be written in before we read the resolution?
yes. The Peter J. Caruso and Sons, Inc. Be disqualified for failure to have completed the qualification statement and to have signed the unsworn verification, and for ambiguity and incompletion of parts of the proposal.
Did you get that, Mrs. Tarzan?
So that would be.
Failure to complete what again? The first one?
Failure to complete the statement of bidder
The
qualifications.
the bidder's qualification
Okay.
statement. Not having signed the unsworn verification. So they're not subject to penalty according to law because they didn't sign that part. And they also omitted some of the information.
So Dr. Scott will read the resolution, but whoever makes the motion needs to decide if you're going to, on recommendation of the solicitor, include Caruso and Son as C, or just go with the A and B. Is that correct, Dr. Scott?
Yes.
Now, I'd call your attention that under A, K. Dolan also failed to sign the unsworn verification to authorities.
So is that why they were disqualified?
Yes,
Okay, so this is the same category.
it's the same plus more.
What you're saying then is disqualifying from the whole bid process?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the motion here on insert 2 would disqualify 3, maybe Dolan, Scaretti, and Caruso.
That's
Right.
correct.
Dr. Scott will read it, and then whoever makes the motion can decide if they want to include Caruso in the recommendation of the solicitor or not. Is that what-
Yes, sir. This is insert 2. Be it resolved that, 1, the Board of School Directors of the Southmoreland School District approves and ratifies the disqualifications of the following bids on the advice of the solicitor for the reasons hereinafter set forth. A, K. Dolan Corporation on a statement of bidders' qualifications for failure to have signed the unsworn verification to authorities. B, Scaretti Site Development Paving Company for failure of the officer of the bidder to have signed the bond as the principal on the same bond form which was signed by the surety and/or the surety to have signed on the same bond form as the officer of the bidder, thus providing an invalid, incomplete bond with surety. C, Peter J. Caruso and Sons, Inc., disqualified for failure to complete bidder's qualification and unsigned verification and for incompletion on parts of the proposal and omitted some information.
So we have a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Calero to include C.
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Calero, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Shipley. Questions?
If I may, Mr. President, I did send a letter by email to all of the bidders from the last time, in which I called attention to the fact that it's necessary to complete the bidder's qualification form and the bid bond. So,
The only one that would have done that would have been Caruso, because obviously you didn't have it telling that.
Oh, no, they were told.
Oh, they were.
This was from the bid opening on July 9th.
Oh, okay.
from July 9th,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So the same 3 that failed this time failed
Last
again.
time.
It's like being given a retest and missing the same questions.
Do we have any more questions or comments? With having a motion and a second, roll call, please.
Mr. Calero?
Yes.
Mrs. Love? Yes. Mr. Miller?
Yes?
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes? Yes. Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 8-0, 1 absent. So we go back to page 1 of the agenda. Scotty Way paving project, award of bid.
So your apparent low bidder is El Grande across the board.
Where's this company from, do we know?
We'll wait till we get a motion in a second. Dr. Scott will read the motion.
They originally did work here.
And Mr. Matonic said I leave out, obviously, the option, but the company also,
Right, we're waiting for that.
okay. Be resolved that the Board of School Directors of the Southmoreland School District award the bid to complete the Scotty Way paving project, option A, option B, option C, option D, with a respective alternative or without respective alternate as noted below at the stated cost, and authorize the president to execute the form of the contract and the secretary to attest thereto.
So we need a motion.
Are we allowed to speak?
Yeah, I can make a motion, we can vote. I suppose.
Can we discuss it?
How's that?
Can we discuss it?
Oh, sure, okay, he's wanting a motion, so somebody make a motion, and then we'll see, and I'll talk, sure. You're asking for a motion to get it on the table, so is that what you're saying?
I just want to make my pitch for doing.
Go ahead.
Doing the complete job.
Okay,
To me, it would be like fixing a bad section of my wall at home. The guy then fixes it, paints it, but the rest of the wall isn't repainted and it doesn't match. Think about this, if the rest of the roadway continues to crumble, you get potholes, and there are sections that are bad, then you're gonna come back with equipment down the road, maybe next season, and you're gonna be cutting and milling, and you're gonna have a completed nice section, and you're gonna be doing the rest of the driveway. I think you should get it all done at one time.
So let's get a motion on the floor so we can have the discussion. And motion by Mrs. Love, going by the chart, which company and options?
I think we should repair just the area that needs repaired on. I'm not for paying or doing the whole road.
So which company is the first blank?
Can we, I mean, it is pretty complicated. Will we assist to help?
Well, the first thing, it appears to be that El Grande is left as the lowest responsible bidder for all categories. So we know it's El Grande Industries, Inc. of Menneson, PA.
So, Ms. Love, you'd be talking about number 7, or, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm just looking at it. Is that what she'd be saying? Is that what you're saying, number 7, the partial one, or?
I would probably go with 8.
Or 8?
8 is the partial.
Okay.
Or 3 and 4.
3 and 4 also.
Or 3 and 4 would be under, okay.
I have a question, Jim.
Now 3 and 4 do not include the heavier,
Right.
deeper excavation that 7 and 8 have. The difference between 7 and 8 adds the tar and chip coat. If you feel that's worth an extra, $5,960, then that's what you want to do. Give it that extra seal protection.
Question, Jim, about funding for this. It obviously was not included in this year's budget, so it'll come out of our...
It'll come out of our capital reserve funds that, have been reserved and committed for projects.
And that amount is in the budget for next year, correct?
Now, that amount is in the committed part of our fund balance.
Okay.
You have the fund balance reserved for
So it's-
early retirements, you have fund balance committed and reserved for projects and contingencies, and you have the fully unreserved, undesignated fund balance.
Do we have more discussion, or?
So we have, where are we?
I think it's up to Ms. Love to choose
Pick an option.
one of those 4, only the spot.
I'll say 8 on the El Grande, the 39,960,
So that is-
D1.
It's D1.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion by Mrs. Love, second by Mr. Calero for D1. Do we have second by Mr. Calero, so discussion and comment?
The amount of, you should read the amount of that.
Okay. I'm gonna read that.
$39,960.
So comment and question?
Can we go with what Lee recommends? What style?
Mr.
Should we do
Miswell?
the whole thing, or should we do the 400 square feet? I know you said at the other meeting that you wanted to do the whole thing. You still feel the same way?
Yes.
Okay.
The complete, look at the cost, the difference from 59,000, 60,000. You're looking at $20,000 more to complete the whole thing.
Okay.
I have a question on that. So you're saying you're looking at only 20,000, but you're not, that's if you're comparing them with the different base thing. Again, if you're comparing that between what they're saying they want to do that, then you're talking about the difference being a little more than that, 70,000, right? You're talking about $31,000
Right.
difference.
Yeah.
If you're comparing apples to apples.
Right.
So it'd be $31,000, not 20,000.
And that does beg the question, if that tar and chipping gives you that extra value,
Right.
the 5,000, I certainly do not know. It's beyond my area of
Was that
expertise.
our idea or their idea?
Actually, that was an idea given to me by an unrelated contractor, one who did not bid on the job.
Well, let me ask you this, I have a question then for Lee. If you were choosing between C and C1, are you saying that you would recommend it without that tar and
We-
chipping?
After discussion, we decided that the value investment, the value job for us, in our eyes, was column 5, option C.
Okay. So then if we were comparing apples and oranges, then we would say you're comparing C to D.
Yes.
Because that's the
Ah, okay.
comparison.
Yes.
C to D.
Okay.
And then the difference there between the two is $25,000.
Yes.
You want to change it to a D?
So for
Ms. Love?
25,000, you're
Getting
getting
the
a
whole
single
driveway.
job.
I know.
Yep.
My concern is that, I believe every contractor that came up to look at the site, they all came, is where do we stop for the repair? Because of the condition of the road. And they were hesitant on stopping here or stopping here. That's why we actually painted 2 white lines on that roadway to give them what we thought would cover the entire repair area. But there's even question if our white lines are in the correct spot. I'm not an engineer in paving, and the fellows that did come in have a lot more experience than me.
And then that begs
That's-
another question, and Lee, and again, they're making a bid, they're putting their reputation on the line. Granted, they're not doing the whole thing, but I would assume that when they bid it, if they weren't at least somewhat sure that the job they could do for $34,000 wasn't gonna be, well, we really don't know where we should end.
Well,
They were that unsure as to where they would end it, and they still bid on it?
No,
That's
the
why
repair
we
they
make-
put in
Right.
will hold up.
Right.
Their repair.
Right, you're just saying how much further.
But a foot down from their repair,
Right.
that's what that area looked like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
But now look at the roadway now, what it looks like.
Yes,
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
That roadway has not been sealed or anything else probably since it was put in, when, not the addition put on, but when the school was built, originally. Now, is there any, do you have any records saying that that was sealed?
No, we
It was
don't.
top coated, there was anything on this road prior to the problem we have now? There's been nothing done to that road since this school's probably been built back in, who knows when. The wear and tear on this road is what's bothering me, spending good money for a bad product, because of the fact we don't know what life's left, what we're not leaving there. What we're leaving there, not addressing, I don't know how much life's left in that blacktop, where it could crumble above, below, or it could stay. We're gambling.
Well, that
I
begs
mean, a
another question.
$20,000 gamble is not a lot when you're talking a roadway and keeping it substantially open for your school district. And especially, nobody has any records how old that blacktop really is, how much wear and tear has been on it.
But all they're gonna do is mill it off and put tar and chip down, right?
Yep, the idea is it's a new product.
They're not
It's
gonna
a
mill
new
it and put tar
product.
and chip. They're gonna mill it and put 1.5
Put new
inch wearing
asphalt.
course
They're gonna
on
put a
1 inch
binder down
asphalt.
and then put a top coat on, am I right or wrong? They're gonna start out, they're gonna mill it down to where they're gonna put a binder. Now, is this, can I ask you something, Jim? Is that tar and chip gonna go the whole way?
It would,
What-
yes.
What
If
you're
you did that,
talking about,
yes.
what you checked into?
Yes.
To put an extra seal to your blacktop?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
gonna go the whole way, from the Y, clear to the top of the hill. It's gonna be done with that.
It would, they would, the typical job is after they mill it down, after you repair the section, then they'll put a tack coat down, and then they put the wearing asphalt for lack of a better term, again, I'm not a paving expert, but in lieu of the tack coat, I was interested to see what the pricing would be to tar and chip. I was disappointed that it's more expensive to tar and chip. Maybe I should have assumed that from the beginning, but again, why do our townships and counties and boroughs do that? That's to extend the life of the road
Right.
surface. It annoys us all when we end up running on one of these roads, but I understand that process. And that begs another question, because I don't see any evidence in the past of any seal coating being done on these parking lots. And you'll see cracks are opening up. You know, you've got to really walk and look down, you'll see that. And you know, the sun eats that asphalt, it turns it white. It's killing it over time. That's why at home, when you have an asphalt driveway, you know, every couple of years, you either do it yourself or you hire a contractor to come over and seal it. Now, that's something that, you know, we're gonna have to address down the road, to get into a sealing program. And then the repainting to extend the life of our
I have to agree with
surfaces.
you about the ceiling and the moisture getting in under this blacktop, because it's on a hillside. There's a lot of water runs down that hill. Plus, when you're driving up there with bigger vehicles like trucks, your tendency, your wheels are turning and digging into the blacktop further than a car, like our delivery trucks and stuff like that. How much wear and tear, and how long are we gonna gamble that this ain't gonna happen further up the hill? This is my whole concern. For spending an extra $20,000 now, you might be safer in a long run. That's all
Well,
I
you know,
got to say.
you brought up a question that I had thought about, the drainage under the road, how old that terracotta pipe is. Do you want to call it timeout? And again, another thought is, you know, you dig that up and you replace that pipe, but then that will certainly delay this job.
You
How
know,
far do you stop?
We don't know how long that surface has been there. That's my whole concern, because there's only so much life in products. And with the salt and everything being on that road, you're gambling. That's just my opinion. But, I mean, if we have to go back in a year or so and have to do it over, you're probably talking another $10,000. Just the price of oil and the material oil. I better just be quiet, because I don't want to sway nobody's mind here.
That's what you're here for, Jim, that's fine.
So where are we with this motion?
Because there are so many bids out here, and just want to clarify something that Mr. Calero started, that tar and chipping that we're talking about, that our last conversation talked about going the whole way, that is not what Mr. Mizwa is recommending, because my understanding that one would be C1, column 6,
Yes,
Right.
if you wanted to do that, yes.
and that is not, that was not the so-called administration recommendation. That was column 5, which, Lee, you started out by saying you met with a PennDOT engineer, and
Yes.
he said that was the value.
That type of base would be substantial enough for our driveway.
And that contrasts with D1, thank you, which is just repairing the damaged section, but does include the tar and chip.
So if you wanted to actually compare, you're gonna compare C and D. They're exactly the same, except that C's doing the whole driveway and D is only doing the 400 square yards or whatever it is. So I know Amy had said that she put a motion on the floor for D1, but that would not be comparing the two if you were looking at it that way.
Lee, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Tell me if I'm right or wrong. If we would go with, let's say, C, that product, like the township roads, could in the future also be tar and chipped, am I correct?
Yes, you can go.
Okay, so we could at another time, if we wanted to, that part of the maintenance of that could be to have the whole thing tar and chipped again if we felt we needed that.
Well, the reason why we looked at having the whole area milled is the curb relief.
Right.
We don't have enough curb relief to just top
Canine.
on that now. It has to be milled down.
Right,
The curbs aren't high enough.
right.
And there was other signs warning us of future tar and chipping. No, they just go out there, they heavily tar the road, and then the chip truck comes by and spreads the chips, and that's it.
Done a lot
Now,
from
you
township to
mentioned
township.
curb. Is there a state law or something going into the school, the curb has to be so high for the entrance to a school or anything? You mentioned the curbing, that's why.
The reason why I mentioned the curbing, I believe most of the paving contractors looked at the height of the curb. And areas where we had 6 inches, of course, you can go over top of that with a wear course, but some of the areas are just 2 or 3 inches, it wouldn't be enough. So we'd lose our curb and the water coming down the roadway would run over the sidewalk.
I thought maybe there was a stipulation.
I don't believe so, not on the school district.
Like that have to be so high. Because the water is over top of it, what is it?
With the tar and chip layer in between, I believe one of the contractors mentioned that to me, and they questioned why we would have tar and chip. I don't believe if you would have all the contractors here and discuss the tar and chip, some would say that would be a good idea, and some would say, why would we need that? I don't know their feelings on their.
What's your feeling?
I wouldn't do the tar and chip.
Well, that's a recommendation from the main supervisor, right? I mean,
We have so many cuts in that road, if you look at the patches and,
oh, I know.
and down the center, there's a wide strip that was in there for, I couldn't tell you when that was put in. This way, the entire roadway would be one smooth surface. You wouldn't have any more cuts or any pieces.
Right.
It would be a complete, and the edges would be sealed, and we can maintain that in a check on the year or two and have it sealed. We
Mr.
could-
Miswell, may I ask then if, for the motion that Mrs. Love made for D1, would you also recommend then, if you're just repairing that section, that also not be tarred and chipped?
Yes.
And I don't know if that influences the motion or anything, but thank you.
They would have to agree to amend their motion.
I have another, Lee, you said about resealing it, if we did the whole thing, and then in a few years, if we needed it, we could reseal it.
Well, we would put that on a plan
Right.
to maintain that.
Right, exactly. If we were not to do the whole driveway, and we just did the section, we could seal it next year? Or you say it's not, you don't believe it's sealable?
It's
the way
not,
it is?
it's not sealable. It would, there's so many cracks and checkering all the way down the driveway.
You couldn't seal it?
It couldn't
without
seal
it. Okay, all right.
Any more questions or comments? Just to finalize, I just wanted to say that within the last 20 years, I've lived within probably 4 or 5 blocks of that driveway in 2 different directions. And I remember over the years, like Mr. Miswell was saying, of it being patched here and patched there, and different things being done, that in my recommendation, I would say do the whole thing and get it done right instead of just keep throwing bandages on, but that's just my comment before the vote. Roll call, please.
So we're doing number
What are we voting on?
8.
Yeah, which one are we voting on?
Unless you want for 8.
Or unless you want to change,
Stay.
you want to change your motion, it's up to you. We can vote on it, and then if it doesn't pass,
Then I'll go for D. I don't.
D instead of D1. So that's option D.
I have a question. So if this fails, can we vote on, Dave, if this fails, can we vote on another option?
Correct.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So Mr. Calero second, so if he's okay.
Yeah, you need to change it to D or D1.
Oh, D, I'll second the motion
Okay.
on D.
Okay.
That's option D without respective alternate.
What's the price then?
And that price is $34,000.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Calero,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes?
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
No.
Mrs. Shipley,
No.
Mr. Beistel,
No.
Mr. Benz?
No. Motion passes 5-4. is it?
No, it's
Oh, 4-4.
Missing a bunch.
I'm sorry. Forgot, apologize. So motion fails 4-4. So do we have another motion?
I make a motion.
Vanessa,
Go ahead.
okay. What am I saying here? I move that we award the bid to El Grande for option C,
Which is column 5.
column 5, at a cost of $59,945.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Shipley, second by Mrs. Rhodes. Questions or comments?
Question, now what all
Question.
we get for $59,000?
When you doing one?
Can you run through that again, please, Mr. Mizwa?
Making every money,
Give us the, what we are getting for column 5, option C. What does that get us?
Page 19, that would be 3.06, 1.1 for alternate third.
Page 2, option C in your agenda is what that would cover.
On the second page, which under option C, page 1 and 2, turn the page at the top, C.
And Mr. Mizwa, for me, in layman's terms, can you just capsulize what that would, what the scope of that work would be, please?
That would be removing base down to depth of 13 inches. It would be installing 6 inches of number 4 stone base. You could see some that came up, floated, they would determine, floated up out of the repair section. They're probably the size of your fist. And that's choked with number 2A. 2A stone has fines in it, so when you would put it in and compact it, the fines would take up the voids. And then it would just follow the paving area, putting down the base paving and then putting the wearing course on top. The difference with this bid is that the substantial base is installed.
For all practical purposes, it's voting for what the other motion except for the longer stretch, right? Material.
What?
Right.
Yep,
Yeah.
I still didn't hear that. That would be the entire, that would,
Right, yeah.
doing that heavy repair section
Right.
with the heavier stone and completely doing the entire drive.
I do have one other question. Sorry, I'm covering this up. Did we ever decide what's going on with the road mill after they take it off? The milling?
I believe
Do we
it's,
get it, or
it would,
It's
the
their
contractor would own
Liability
it.
and responsibility under.
Pardon me?
It's their responsibility and liability. They get it, and it's up to them to decide what to do with it.
Okay,
That was the same as the last
that
time.
was the same as last time.
They may look for a dump site in Scottsdale, they may truck it away.
Isn't that what we talked before? Didn't we get some road mill? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Love?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
No.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes,
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Calero?
No.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 5-3. Seeing no citizens, I guess there's no citizens' comments. Anything else from the board? Motion to adjourn?
before we adjourn, can I say
Sorry.
something? I just wanted to mention to everybody, I had the opportunity last week to come and attend a, help me, Tim, what was the name?
School-level planning.
A school-level planning meeting here. It was for the primary grades. You would have been so proud. I was so proud of those teachers. They are so enthusiastic. They truly want what's best for our students. And they, I mean, here they are, they came, it's summertime, they're in here at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning, and I think you stayed until like noon or something like that. It was truly, when I left, I was very, very proud to be affiliated with this school. And I just needed to say that because they really worked well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Calero.
And I would like to add that I attended this senior high planning session the week before. And again, I made the same observation. They're extremely dedicated. This isn't I only get paid when I'm actually teaching. Teaching is a full-time job for them all year long, and they're constantly thinking about ways of making improvement. They are certainly a dedicated group.
School level planning is ongoing in the summer in all of the buildings, and I have been encouraging principals to get word out to you folks to be able to come as you can and see the work that they're doing. Again, it's a big reason why we are becoming successful as we are.
If you are able to make it, I would just give a recommendation that once the school year starts, maybe even talk to one of the principals or Dr. Molnar or Dr. Scott about attending one of the team meetings. I did that one time. It was just so eye-opening on how the teaming concept works, where they get together and collaborate. There's different kinds of meetings and things. And that was very informative also. I just pass on that recommendation. Any other comments, questions?
There are many different meetings and even from observing classroom instruction. And again, just so that we as a board, when we hear public comment, when we make our decisions, we're making them not based on just hearsay, but actual observation of what occurs at the school level. And it really is significant. If we don't do that, I think we're not doing what we've been elected to do.
Right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Shipley, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Rhodes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Good night. Thanks for coming.